Hey, welcome to Out of Crazy Town, your guide to divorcing a narcissist. I'm Jackie, your host, and I'm so excited to share something groundbreaking with you today. Anne Wintemute, the brilliant CEO behind this innovation, has created Aimee Says, an AI-powered tool specifically designed to support victims and survivors of domestic abuse. This tool has already transformed lives, empowering survivors to regain control and move forward with confidence. So let's dive in to how Aimee Says works and why it is a must-have for anyone navigating life after abuse. Hello, Anne Wintemute. Welcome to Out of Crazy Town, your guide to divorcing a narcissist. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jackie.
This is going to be the coolest episode because I stumbled on this AI product that you are putting out into the world. And I was like, how quickly can we schedule this and get this out and keep raising awareness about it? So I am excited to have you here and to get into it and explain to people so they can get to using this to help them in their own lives.
Yes, great. I'm excited too.
Well, first, I want to tell everyone a little bit about you. Anne Wintemute, you are the co-founder and CEO of Aimee Says, which is what we're going to talk about today, and that's AIMEE. For those of you guys listening and you're running to Google this right away, it is the AI companion for victims and survivors of domestic violence, and you are a fierce champion for the rights of survivors and children and systems that hold perpetrators accountable. Love that. And prior to working with survivors, you founded and directed an elementary school that became a model for micro schools across the United States. That's a super unique thing. And in your spare time, you enjoy urban homesteading. I love that term, with your partner and your blended family in Denver, Colorado. So welcome again.
Thank you so much. Always interesting hearing myself introduced in that way. But yes, there's goats out the back window that listeners can't see right now. But yes, the urban homestead surrounds my office.
Oh my God. Okay. So when I just need a mental vacation, I go to Instagram and look at baby goats. Okay.
Yes.
If for those of you that think I'm weird, just go do it and you will become addicted. It is like, talk about like releasing like endorphins and oxytocin when you're watching something.
Yes, but you should be careful because, watching them on Instagram is like a gateway. You start to build a tolerance, and then you will have goats of your own, and then you will be breeding goats. So just be careful. Only in moderation. Baby goats in moderation.
I could see that. And baby goats in pajamas, by the way, just to be real specific. What the best is gateway. Oh my God, that is hilarious. Okay, so true. By the way, I have to vouch for that. I think I'm on my way to getting a goat. Okay, so let's talk about Aimee because this is amazing. In this world, AI is taking over the world, and regardless of what anyone thinks about it, it's here. It's here to stay. And I know there's some scary rhetoric out there about, where it's headed, but gosh darn it, if it's here, let's use it for good. And you have harnessed and done that. And this is now a tool for domestic violence victims and survivors that they can use, right?
Yes. Yes. And really anyone who's been impacted by any kinds of like coercively controlling or manipulative or just otherwise really unhealthily dysfunctional relationships where there is a power dynamic. I know a lot of people don't self-describe as a victim or survivor of domestic violence. I don't want you to think that Aimee is not for you. If someone consistently evades accountability or makes you feel bad or makes you feel like you're responsible for the harm that they caused, then Aimee is absolutely for you.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in a relationship where you're just confused as to why you're feeling bad all the time and you can't figure it out and it's your fault and you keep trying harder, that's, and things aren't getting better, right? That's a really good point. And, I just want to allay any anxieties or fears anyone has of AI. If they have never opened their Chat GPT on their phone or if they've never used it, you guys, it's super easy. And we're going to talk about how easy it is for you to use today. So please just listen and it will all be explained and you have to use it. So I wanted to know, Anne, what was your journey to lead you here to create this?
Yeah, so I have a journey much like many other people who are working in this space. I've worked with survivors of post-separation abuse for many years, primarily through the family court system, really kind of helping through custody evaluations in a system that anyone who has been court involved understands is a really a challenge system. It's a system with incredible bias against parents. And the needs of my clients are 24/7. They're inexhaustible. Right? They don't just need help reading and responding to a message. They're beat down, they're exhausted, they feel unseen by the world, misunderstood by the people who are supposed to be in place to help them. And that impacts every facet of their life, whether or not they have the energy to make dinner at the end of the day, whether they feel like they have the emotional resource to connect with the children that they are, desperately trying to protect and love so much. And I really wanted to build something that could feel like a companion, could feel like having a best friend in your corner who also happened to be an expert, who also happened to have access to the entirety of the internet, that could provide legal empowerment, mental health support, and really practical things like, can you read this message from my ex and tell me why my head feels like it's been spun around, and then draft a response for me. So everything from just that kind of validating emotional support through really practical support and tools, while people kind of figure out what are my next steps? What do I want to do?
Yeah, I love that. And when I was doing some research on you, and I know you in your consultancy group that you kind of just mentioned, A Garden Grows, one of the things I noticed about you, and even though all of us in this space sort of deal with this, the term post-separation abuse came out. And I know that that's the aspect of helping clients that speaks to me the most, and it just hits me in my heart, and I could tell that that's your angle as well. And the reason I bring up that term is that in this space, it's not just a custody battle. It's not just fighting over finances. It's not just dealing with this person who is kind of hell-bent on ruining you. The term is important because it's all designed to keep the abuse going. And so that is why it really hit home for me when I found out about Aimee, because it's through that lens. And
Mhm.
so, yes, you need help responding. Yes, you might need, someone there just to listen, which she truly does. But it's all through that lens of that's what's going on. And that's what people don't see. And that's what
Yes.
I love about this.
And that's part of, isolation is a tactic that abusers use. And one of the really unfortunate things about post-separation abuse is the abuser can really kind of stop with the isolation tactics, and the survivor can continue to feel profoundly isolated because they feel so misunderstood. Because as a society, we believe a myth that when the relationship is over, the abuse stops. And, this post-separation abuse comes at a time when services run out, right? If you
Yes.
experience a crisis where you had concerns about your physical security, you may have engaged with some victim advocacy services. You may have gotten a protection order. That might have been a time where you felt like, wow, the system is actually here to help me if I really need it. Unfortunately, those resources really drop off a cliff. And then, especially if you share children, you may experience, a decade or more of post-separation abuse. And there are no really cost-effective services that can help meet the scope and scale of need. You can have an incredible divorce coach, which is wonderful. You can be a part of a support group that meets 1 hour a week, which is wonderful. But at 2 a.m., when you got that message, you're going to feel all alone again, right? You're
Yeah.
going to feel isolated again. So Aimee is there to fill in the gaps of all the resources that you are able to access. And if you cannot access those resources for whatever reason, because you live 100 miles, right? Rurality is an independent risk factor, because you live 100 miles from something, or you just can't afford the services that are available kind of post decree or after you've gotten out of the relationship, then Aimee's there for you.
Yep, absolutely. And for everyone listening, we're going to get more into the nitty gritty of how to use Aimee. But there is something everybody needs to hear about. I was emailing you and I mentioned a study, and you're like, oh, I love studies. Are we talking about the same one? And I found it on the Aimee website. But I am such a nerd for this stuff. And it fascinated me that someone actually took all the data from a whole bunch of, well, I'm going to let you explain it, but you guys, you have to hear sort of where some of the background of this came from. It's so cool.
There are really cool projects right now going on in AI, helping to primarily around kind of the lethality aspects of domestic violence. And I'll be clear, Aimee is not a crisis support tool. Please call the hotline and crisis, call 911. We're here for everything outside of that moment where you need, immediate emergent care or response. So one of those studies that was done is around it was done in the UK, just taking police data, could they build a model, an AI supermodel is really what they ended up building, that built off of kind of the normed tests that are already out there, the lethality assessment, the danger assessment, some of the direct assessments that police officers do. And based on existing data, so they had the police reports from these cases and they knew the outcomes of the cases, whether or not they resulted in a DV homicide, the death of the victim. And they built a supermodel that did, through AI, right? It's all machine learning, that did a better job than any other tool in this context at predicting the likelihood that domestic violence would become fatal in that relationship. And, I really geek out about these studies. I have several of them on my table right next to me. I get in there with a highlighter and get real excited.
I see you. I see you.
Yes, you see me with my highlighter there. It's an incredible application of AI, but also what it says to me is if a machine can see it, it's not invisible. The data exists. It is our own human limitations that are keeping us from being able to kind of access and collate the data in a way that provides the best protection. And I believe that that is an argument for AI being superior when there are human limitations, like human capacity creates a limitation. It's either going to, for example, prevent a court from recognizing that there's violence in a relationship and that children need protection. To the human limitations that prevent your therapist from understanding what you're going through. If a computer can do it, the information is there, but bias is keeping people from seeing it.
I just got so excited, right? Because even though I know it's still a long road, potentially an amazing tool when in this family court system, so many judges or court professionals are so prejudiced or so biased or their perspectives are so skewed. We hear the tragedies all the time. And so, hopefully, if things become more black and white and data driven, on right in front of your eyes, wasn't produced, it's no one's opinion, maybe that could help save lives and put
Yes.
kids with a protective
Yes.
parent.
And what this machine, what the supermodel that they built in the UK does, and what Aimee does, is it collates patterns of information, and that's where kind of the human capacity really runs into a wall. We want to take in one piece of information and we want to make a judgment about it. In the context of divorcing a narcissist, that one piece of information is like, yeah, he's kind of a turd, and that's the extent to which that turdliness is considered in the context of awarding custody and or legal decision making.
I'm so using that word again. Okay, go ahead.
Turdliness. I just, ladies and gentlemen, you saw it here. That was the first time that it's been used.
It's officially part of my vocabulary. Okay,
right here. Yes. And what that creates a limitation that kind of it snowballs the kind of bad outcomes, bad judgment calls that are traditionally made. Yeah, sure, that thing happened, but now the relationship is over. Yeah, sure, he's a turd, but he picked his kids up in the morning and, got them to school. When you have the ability to look across larger amounts of data, which is what AI is able to do, and then really kind of unemotionally present that data, really rooted in evidence and understanding and the law, I think people will be able to hear it differently because you're telling an entirely different story, right?
Absolutely.
So it's not just the turdliness. It's, unfortunately, there's a pattern where, the father continues to create so much fear in the relationship that the mother's unable to make safe educational and medical decisions. Here are the examples.
Got it. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so now let's get into the nitty gritty. So they go to Aimee Says, AIMEE says.com. Then what?
So they'll have the option to start a free chat right away. The vast majority of our users use the free chat. There's no trace. Aimee won't remember who you are when you come back tomorrow, which is very, it's a safe feature. It's very much like having, for example, a chat with the hotline. Trash it, you can navigate away and it's gone. Like I said, most people use that. That's especially if they're early in the relationship or they just went on a few weird Bumble dates and they got some, I don't really know, but I don't want to tell my friends about this. I'm starting to maybe make some plans for leaving, some preparation, some safety planning, etc. There is also the option to upgrade. If people upgrade, it supports our work. Thank you very much. And it supports you and accessing your goals. The upgraded features will create an account where you have chat history. for example. So you can revisit any conversation you had, you can continue it again with new information. There's also a journal, which is really important for documentation. So you go into the journal, you type out what happened, you click the button, and then Aimee, very subtly, as we have trained her, she's going to validate what you're putting into that journal entry, but also help you identify maybe some pieces of information in the entry so that your experience can be used later. So, you said this thing happened at the soccer game. Do you know if there were any witnesses? Like, oh, do you remember their names or do you have their contact information? In order to populate a robust journal entry that is simultaneously cathartic and also provides documentation. You can upload documents, right? You can upload like 2,000 pages of talking parents records and
2,000 pages.
yes,
And
and
it
have
will
a
analyze
conversation.
it and see the
Yes,
patterns.
you could say, with that, you can go in and say, I want to request sole medical decision making. What questions should I ask for you to review our talking parents record to find evidence that would be in our kid's best interest? Aimee will produce a list of questions that you go, wow, I could not think of those questions on my own. And you say, great, go answer number 1. Go answer number 2, answer number 3. All right, put all that information together so I can give it to my attorney.
Okay. And so on that level, you're uploading 2,000 pages and asking Aimee to do a lot. Do you need to do the paid version for that kind of?
So everything except the free chat that I talked about, where you can come back every day, 5 times a day, doesn't matter how often. The other things that I talked about, where there's any memory or the ability to upload, are paid accounts, which is $15 a month right now. That's like a 5-minute phone call with your attorney. So highly recommend it. And again, it supports our work.
Awesome. That is amazing. And I did take Aimee for a spin, and I was going to read it, or just run it by you, but it deleted, which is great, which is actually a good thing. If I'm not sure that I want it out there, it went away. But I can just tell you, like, I ran a scenario by her. And I've changed all the details, but there was one that I'm aware of. There was a father who dropped off a 6-year-old son and forced him out of the car yelling, "You forgot your lunch. You're going to have to go out without lunch today." Because of course a 6-year-old should be completely responsible for whether or not they remembered their lunch, right?
Yes.
So sad. There were witnesses and whatnot. And so I asked Aimee, like, well, what do I do? Do I document this? And she gave me suggestions for how to document it. And then I said, hey, if I really want to contact Dad, just to kind of also document that it happened, what would you suggest that I say to him? And she gave me a suggestion. So I just wanted to run a really specific scenario by you and get
Yes.
listeners and let them know what happened.
And the more specific a user is, the better, right? Which is amazing. I mean, you can go in there and say, what's coercive control? And she'll give you a robust definition. But if you really want to feel like you had a conversation with an expert who is like inexhaustibly available to you, put in the details. Okay, well, does this fact change something, right? What would be the impact or the expected impact on the child? For being shoved out the car door and made responsible for the dad's incapacity, right, to ensure that the child had packed a lunch. What are the potential impacts on the child? You can ask all sorts of questions and have Aimee look at things from a variety of angles. And give you action steps, just like you said. If I wanted to document this privately, how would I? If I want to document this publicly with him, how would I? Those are excellent examples.
So because AI learns, and so say you're doing the paid version. I think you answered my question when you talked about uploading the 2,000, pages of talking parents, for instance. Could I just brain dump on Aimee and just like tell her the whole story? And will she sort of learn what's going on with me? So like, because I have clients that contact me, weekly, multiple times a week, because their big problem is communicating with him or her, right? Like it's such a challenge. It's painful. And when I've put stuff in my chat GPT for work, like I'll brain dump, ideas for things, and it learns and it starts to use my own verbiage, and it starts to, so is that how it works?
It does. It starts to pick up on you. So what you're talking about is known in the tech world as kind of a knowledge graph. It's this background gathering of information that is privatized to the individual user, right? Because if you think about how does AI work, or how does Aimee work, we have our big AI partners that we work with. Then we have this library that we have trained Aimee on. That's what her name is, what she does, what she shouldn't do, what's a good outcome, or what good advice, what's bad advice. Don't make this recommendation because it correlated with negative outcomes. how many pieces of information to go out and gather at a time, like all of that individual training. And then within an account, there's what Aimee learns within that account. We do not use the information provided by users to train our model.
Okay.
Okay. It is encrypted. We cannot see what you say to Aimee. We cannot see what Aimee says back. No one is snooping in on your account. We're not collecting your information. We're not selling that information to anybody else. It is yours. Okay. Same thing with your documents. We cannot see the contents of your documents. We can see when you've uploaded, because we get, if there was an error in the upload, we can come back and let you. So within the context of your specific account, there's a knowledge graph, and that's what you're talking about. So you can go to the My Story page and, information about your abuser, your goals, how you want Aimee to talk to you, what jurisdiction you're in, the history of abuse, the risk of lethality level. Most of our users probably have a low lethality risk, but geez, their quality of life is just in the trash can.
Well
right?
said.
Person is just so constantly harassing and really sabotaging your parenting. Let Aimee know that, because in Aimee's responses are all kind of trained around that information. When you upload a document, it doesn't mean that Aimee's always thinking about that document in every chat. But when you say, hey, what do our orders say about that? Or he just sent me this message, but I think it's in violation of our orders. Right, then Aimee, she can see your orders, they're uploaded. She can say, yes, that's a violation of section 14. How do you want to respond to this? So she can pull that information in.
That is absolutely amazing. And I think you've also answered my next question. So if a partner, devious, toxic partner finds out you are using Aimee somehow, can it be subpoenaed?
This is kind of a to be determined in terms of AI. We're at the frontier of how AI is going to be utilized in the legal sphere on both sides, right? How can AI be weaponized against a victim, and how is a victim or survivor able to use AI in their case? We can give our kind of best practice, and our greatest advice to you is you really don't want your ex to know that you're using Aimee.
Right.
Okay. For a variety of reasons, most singularly, because he or she will start to try to undermine the companionship that you get from that, just like with anybody else, right? They're going to say negative things about your attorney, or that your therapist must be doing a terrible job because you're still crazy, right? They're going to try to cut the legs out from anything that's giving you a sense of support. If you're having free chats, there is nothing. There is no record, okay? Anyone who has a free chat, and you could have done this, can send themselves a PDF of the chat. That would give you a hard copy of that information. Technically speaking, if in formal discovery, it was requested that you give them that information, just like an email you sent, just like a diary, entry, or a text you sent your friend, that is technically considered discoverable. What we don't know is if courts are going to have any interest in people's AI-fueled conversations. Yeah. Arguably, because AI cannot be admitted as evidence right now, there's an argument against it. If you have an account and you have a journal, and your ex knows that you have a journal and requests it in formal discovery, we think that there is a possibility that you would have to turn that over. That would be true of your Talking Parents journal, your OFW journal, your email account, the notes that you keep on your phone, etc. It's not a new risk, but it's potentially a similar risk to having information that you really don't want to have to share anywhere else.
Okay, so I'm going to translate that into real world, because I know you have to give a certain level of answer as the CEO. So people, just think to yourself, what are the things you would realistically turn over to opposing counsel? Okay. And realistically, there are many things. I'm going to just say, if it were me, no opposing counsel, no attorney. I don't have any of that. I'm just saying, if it were me, that would be my answer. Okay. I'm not saying that you're saying that, but I'm saying that I'm saying that. And the same, if they think about it, then it's no different than anything lying around their household, right? That a court would ask for. So if you're like, that's, I don't have that, sorry guys, then the answer is true for anything that they've been using to get support. So, okay. So I just wanted to
it's not the court that's going to ask, it's going to be your ex. So if they don't know you have an Aimee account, then there you go.
Exactly. And many people on this call, if you've used a divorce coach as well, we often say like, keep us your secret weapon. You know,
Mhm.
there's no reason. This is just another support system that you have that you absolutely need to get through this horrible time. And there's no reason, yeah, that they need to know about it. So,
Agreed.
okay, thank you so much for asking that. So you start this conversation with Aimee. We have these different levels that you can use. And do you see this? Just what kind of impact do you see now? I guess is what I'm trying to ask. What kind of impact are you seeing today? What are some stories that you've heard?
We hear amazing stories. So again, we can't see what you put in. We can't see what Aimee puts out, but we do have a survey that pops up, and we have it. All the staff has it routed to their devices, so we can see people's survey information immediately, which is great because it's like getting a pick me up every 10 minutes. We know that we have users across the entire lifespan of abuse, right? So we have people who were like, oh my gosh, thank goodness you just saved me, like a terrible future because I was suspecting there were some red flags early. They just started dating this person and they've decided to end the relationship. And Aimee helped them come up with the language if they, about how to end the relationship, how to keep the escalation of ending that relationship as low as possible. So we know we have users in that really early time frame. We know we have a lot of users in the I'm planning on leaving, but I don't know how long it's going to take. And, my emotional resources are really, really low. And I just need some confidence and some clarity to keep this up while necessary because, I don't have any money yet and I'm trying to figure that out. Or our children are still really young and I'm afraid that he'll get, or the abuser will get, 50-50 custody. So they're really kind of relying on Aimee through for support when they are not able to make the next decision yet. And we know we have people like incredible pro se protective parents who are using the heck out of Aimee to respond to motions that have been filed against them, respond to false accusations, to analyze, large volumes of information, to collate that information in a way that's going to be most useful for a child custody evaluation or like actually in front of a judge or, how do I talk about the abuse and emotion in a way that does not in a motion, not emotion, in a way that the judge will hear and not discard as like an incident that, is now no longer an issue. And then in co-parenting, I got to keep documenting because I might have to go back to court one day. But really, I just want Aimee to read, analyze, and respond to all of my messages in a way that, the user can trust that it's going to be, just focused on the kids, as low conflict as possible, and that's going to represent them well. So really the gamut.
The
Really
gamut.
the
And
gamut.
I'm just thinking one of the major stressors was for me and many of my clients, even if you have a talking parents or family was whatever, you see that little dot pop up or flag, or you get the alert that they sent a message and your heart just falls through
Mhm.
to your
Yeah.
feet and you're immediately nauseous and you're sweating and you're like dreading opening this. And even, with a divorce coach, whatever, knowing that I always had that tool to put it in. You know what I want immediately? I want validation that
Mhm.
this message was psycho.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
want to read it from whether it's a person that knows what they're talking about or an AI that's analyzed billions of bits of information on this topic. That's the first thing I'm going to need to
Yeah.
hear. And then second of all, you're going to help me come up with an answer that's like going to
Mhm.
make me look good in court. Like hell yes.
Yes, and it's going to cost you nothing, and it's going to happen in seconds. And here's a really important part, like what you just said, I need to be validated, maybe not by personnel, but by a machine. Your friends are exhaustible, right? It is hard to be the friend to someone who is kind of in a semi-constant state of hypervigilance and fight or flight or this message triggering. Aimee gives you space to have the real companionable two-sided relationships that you once had with someone or that you're capable of having with someone when you're able to like differentiate and kind of recompartmentalize the abuse that you're experiencing and not rely on friends for that validation. How many phone calls did you make where you're like, I'm triggered, I'm calling my person, you won't believe what just happened, can you believe that that this person said this thing? You can have that conversation, and we've built in a message evaluation feature. Go to the chat. If you're on a desktop, it'll show in the chat, evaluate message. You click that. If you're on a mobile, most of our users are mobile, just look at the little chat symbol right above the box, click it, then click evaluate message. And then she knows exactly what's happening, right? She will lead the rest of it for you. She'll say, go ahead and cut and paste the message in, drop it in. She's going to ask you some questions to help get a little bit more information. And then you'll see another button that says generate report. And it's so cool, Jackie. Even messages that like if the message didn't stir anything inside of you, it might not stir anything inside of Aimee either. But often the message stirs something, but you're not really sure what it is, and your brain is spinning and you're sputtering. And so you stick that in, generate report. She's going to identify several, if not an extensive list of different forms of manipulation that were present, like, leveraging systems. And he threatens this. It's like kind of a veiled threat about taking you back to court, or leveraging the kids. When he says, how Alice was dressed this morning, you dressed her like a tart, like she doesn't need to look like her mom. Like, that's leveraging your relationship with the children to abuse you. And financial abuse, all of those things. It's going to pull out anything that's in that message, and you are going to feel so good, right? And the thing is a person really can't even give you that. It's so clean. It's so concise. You don't feel guilty. You didn't pay out the nose to have somebody look at that message. And then click draft a reply. Oh. And like that, you want to make a tweak to the reply, make it yellow rock, use Biff, add this part to it. You can infinitely modify it with very little effort on your part, and reclaim your life.
Oh my gosh, reclaim your life. And my listeners have heard me tell this story before, but I remember the specific moment in the middle of my divorce where I was so overwhelmed, and rumination had just taken over my whole life. And it was all I talked about when we were all together. And I remember looking over to Winfred, literally could see the glaze coming over her eyes, and she just changed the subject and started talking about something else. And I was in the middle of this horrible story. And I just went, oh my God, Jackie, you have to stop. You have to stop. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do to help you. And so you just explain, it's that person that you can go to then and, talk about it. But it also then rolls into documentation, and then it rolls into, evidence later, and you've like found a way to roll it all into one. So I absolutely love that. Save your relationships. The other thing I want to talk about is I often have conversations about mindset. And because rumination is such a problem, and if you've been in a relationship with like narcissistic abuse, for example, we are at a very much higher risk of being in that rumination cycle, and it takes over your life. Well, part of the way you have to get out of that is kind of to pick your battle, to pick times to stop talking about it. Pick times that you don't need to text, all your sisters, like the latest thing they said. This is that you could designate then in your mind, I'm going to put it all here. I'm going to put it all in Aimee. I'm going to tell it all to Aimee. And then I'm going to try to make a conscious decision to go out today into the world and not talk about it, because I have a place to put it. And then you can help your brain heal.
Yes. And that rumination it's driven by this dissonance, this lack of clarity, this, feeling misunderstood, misunderstanding a situation, feeling like you can't put a fine point on it. It feels ambiguous. Those are scary thoughts, because this thing may be the biggest threat in your life. And if you don't feel like you know how many toes and claws and words and it has, then you're going to be constantly trying to find the information that's going to give you some sense of clarity, right? And in sometimes literally seconds, Aimee can give you that clarity, right? That allows you to set that down. Like, I don't have to ruminate about it. I know how many claws it has. I know that I've talked through, well, if this happens, what could I do? Right? I've talked through some of those what if then kind of catastrophizing scenarios. You can even go to Aimee and say, I'm about to go out to dinner with my friend and I don't want to talk about this. Help me come up. What am I going to do when I want to talk about it? What should I tell myself instead? You can have really kind of minutia level, which are so important, right? Everything is built off of minutia level thoughts. Minutia level thoughts and conversations with Aimee to help you meet whatever those goals are. And maybe that goal is, I want to go out with my friends tonight, and I don't want to be like, oh my gosh, I kind of need their validation on this thing, or I don't feel like I can have fun with them if they don't understand this aspect, right?
Absolutely.
Save yourself some friends, some time, some money, some headache, mental health. Lean on Aimee.
Awesome. So many scenarios are going through my head, but you're right, because I'll tell people to especially if you're going to be at a party where people know you're getting divorced and how's it going, but they're also not your really good friends. And I would say, have your words ready, have your script ready. She can give you one and then give you ideas like, you know what, ask your friends all about them tonight. Play a game with yourself where it's just the all about them show. But it sounds like she could definitely help you with that. So I love all of that advice. It's just so multifaceted and applies to so
Yeah.
many
I,
situations.
I love what you just said. Like what my friends are going to ask me about the divorce. I don't want to get into it. What can I say that will just kind of help them know like things are difficult. I don't want to pretend it's fine, but that will turn the conversation around so we don't end up focused on it.
Yeah.
Or I mean, you can role play. This is actually
My favorite.
like I'm gonna see my ex at the soccer game and he's often trying to like talk to me and really he's like criticizing me but like it's kind of about soccer, like it's like how I didn't tie my kids cleats right or whatever. So role play with me because I want to rebuff it. And Aimee will only do this if you can handle like Aimee kind of taking the role of your abuser, because that can be really triggering for
Sure.
people. But you can role play and go through a variety of scenarios in your head and get support in coming up with what your response is going to be. That's empowerment. I know what I'm going to do if this happens. Is how people sleep at night, right? And
Oh,
you can role play that with Aimee. And again, caveat asterisk on that one is if you ask her to take the role of your abuser, be prepared because we certainly don't want Aimee triggering people. Make sure you're ready for
yeah.
that.
Make sure you're ready for that because she is learning, so she probably knows him or her very well. Yeah, the other thing is like I used to leave my ex after meetings during the divorce where he was trying to get information, and he was such an amazing information gatherer, and I was not. And I would leave every time like, oh, why did I keep talking? Why did I? So it would have been so great, and I knew it was going to happen, and it's like I had no control over myself once I got in the web. So anyway, sorry, I keep thinking of all these amazing scenarios that this could be
I,
useful.
The one that you just said, we have people who are like, I kept it up in mediation. Like I kept Aimee up in mediation. I was like, he wants this, but I want this. What's another avenue? Or I think he's trying to get this kind of information. What should I share? In most states, you cannot have a person in mediation other than your counsel without permission from the other person. But Aimee's not a person. So
Oh my
um,
God.
help me come up with verbiage on this. We have seen that where survivor, Aimee, and the attorney really trying to keep the wheels on the bus of mediation as soon as possible.
Awesome. Well, you guys, I will have Aimee Says link in the show notes. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Ann. I know we're heading right into the Thanksgiving holiday. So thank you for fitting me in because I know, especially with the holidays, can be very triggering and toxic and manipulative people really like to take advantage of these situations. And so this hopefully is really good timing. And then sometimes when you're laying around with a family, this is just something you can be on your phone doing and exploring. So
That's right. And if you've got maybe a toxic relationship with a family member, Aimee, you could talk through that with Aimee too.
oh my gosh. Ding, ding, ding. That is okay. This is really perfect timing. So I need to hang up and go edit this so I can get on the airways ASAP.
All right. Thank you so much, Jackie. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And best of luck to you. I'm going to be out there promoting the heck out of Aimee. If there's anything new we should know, please let me know so you can come back on and we can keep this going and just get as much help to people as we can.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you so much and happy Thanksgiving.
Okay. Happy Thanksgiving to you too.
Bye-bye.